Chapter 1, Coming Home. Ready, Ray? Commander Assad asked me. It was time to get into my sleeping capsule. After a long mission in outer space, we were heading home to Claryville. Everyone had to be asleep for the landing on Earth. The computer would land the spaceship while we slept. I climbed into my sleeping capsule and Commander Assad closed the top. Pilot Velez was already asleep. The computer would close Commander Assad's capsule. I shut my eyes, relaxed, and waited for sleep to come. I was happy to be going home. We had been in space for only a few weeks, but it had seemed endless at times. I missed my family and friends. I couldn't wait to see everyone at school and tell them about my trip. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ray Chen, astronaut in training. I'm the junior member of the Lotus space mission. That's Commander Assad, Pilot Velez, and me. I came on the mission as part of a school project. Ever since 2050, students have been allowed to travel in space. I'd always wanted to explore the universe, so I applied for a spot on the Lotus mission. But it wasn't easy to join the mission. Commander Assad and Pilot Velez were taking only one student. I had to study hard and pass a lot of tests before I was chosen. The mission had been fun, but I was ready to go home. I breathed deeply and waited to fall asleep and wake up back on Earth. Chapter 2, The Landing. When I did wake up, it was to complete silence. We must have landed, but where were Commander Assad and Pilot Velez? Why hadn't they opened my sleeping capsule yet? I waited a few minutes, then cautiously opened the capsule myself. I sat up and looked around. Commander Assad and Pilot Velez's capsules were still closed. That was strange. The computer was programmed to wake us up as soon as we reached Earth. I tried to open Commander Assad's capsule. It wouldn't budge, so I went over to the computer. Computer, open Commander Assad's capsule. But the computer remained silent. That was strange too. Had something gone wrong? I decided it was time to get help. I opened the spaceship door and stepped out. Back on Earth for the first time in weeks, it felt good to be on solid ground again. When I got over my joy at being back home, I looked around. Our spaceship had landed in a big field, which I assumed was near Claryville. Commander Assad had told me that the spaceship would land right outside of town. That had been a recent breakthrough in space travel. Spaceships could now land near mission members' towns. I thought for sure Mission Control would be waiting for us, but no one was there. After 15 minutes of waiting, I realized I would have to walk into town for help. I was tired, but I had to be realistic. I couldn't wait there forever. I set off. I thought I knew Claryville pretty well, but I wasn't sure where I was. Nothing looked familiar. Had we landed outside a different town by mistake? Finally, I saw a man walking by the side of the road. He was dressed in silver pants with a matching shirt and boots. His hair was green. He looked pretty odd. "Excuse me, sir," I said. "I'm looking for the way to downtown Claryville." "It's straight down this road," he said, "but it's pretty far. Why don't you ask the policewoman to give you a ride?" He pointed to a person in the distance. I thanked him and kept on walking, but as I got closer to her, I became even more confused. I could tell she was a policewoman by her hat and badge, but something about her uniform was different. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said. "I'm trying to get to Mission Control headquarters. My spaceship landed in a field. I need help." The policewoman gave me an odd look, but she waved me into the back of her car. "Sure," she said, "wherever you want to go." Her car was nothing like the Claryville police cars I knew, but I did recognize the Claryville Police Department sticker on the door. I didn't have time to think about it. I had to get help. "Thanks so much," I said, sinking into the back seat and buckling the seatbelt. "I appreciate it." Then we were off. Don't worry, Commander Assad, I thought. Help will be on its way soon. Chapter 3, A Strange School. Before I knew it, we had pulled up in front of a big gray building. "Excuse me, this isn't Mission Control," I protested. "That's right," the policewoman said. "I'm not buying any of that Mission Control nonsense. I'm too sensible for that. I brought you right back where you belong, school." "But I don't go to this school," I protested again, "and I really need help for the astronauts in the spaceship." The policewoman began to pull me along the path to the school entrance. "Too bad," she muttered. "You better watch it, or a kid like you will get retested. You might end up sorting paper clips for the rest of your life." Sorting paper clips? What was she talking about? Then I saw what it said above the school entrance, the Laura Parker School. Okay, there was something really strange going on. That was the name of my school, but this Laura Parker School didn't look anything like mine. I decided it was best just to play along for now, so I smiled at the policewoman. "Thanks for helping me," I said. "You're right. I need to be in school." The policewoman seemed surprised, but she let me go. I opened the school door and waved. She waved back and I vanished inside. But where was I? And what did she mean when she said I would get retested? I was determined to find out. Chapter 4. Everything is explained. The school hallways were empty. I wandered around trying to get my bearings. The classrooms didn't look anything like I remembered. Instead of numbers, they all had funny names. One classroom was marked plumbers. The next one was marked architects. The kids sitting in them looked different too. They weren't wearing jeans and shoes. Instead, they had on jumpsuits and boots. The plumbers were wearing blue jumpsuits and the architects wore yellow ones. Suddenly, I heard voices down the hall. Paralyzed with fear, I couldn't move for a few minutes. Then I took a deep breath and calmed myself. I needed to hide while I figured out a plan. I ducked into a classroom marked doctors. There was someone sitting at a desk inside, a boy in a green jumpsuit. Uh-oh. What would happen now? The boy looked up at me. "Hi," he said. "Do you need something?" Why was he being so friendly? Didn't I look strange to him too? Then I remembered that I was also wearing a jumpsuit. It was a white jumpsuit, the kind that astronauts wear in space. It was a little different from the boys, but not much. No wonder the policewoman had assumed I belonged in school. The boy was looking at me curiously. "Is something wrong?" he asked. I laughed nervously. "No, I'm fine," I said. "I just needed a break, that's all." "Oh, sure. I know they work you really hard over in astronauts," he said. Surprised, I blurted out, "How did you know I was an astronaut?" Now the boy looked surprised. "Because of your jumpsuit, of course," he said. "White for astronauts. I'm Max Quinn. What's your name?" "I'm Ray Chen. Nice to meet you." Max got a wistful look on his face. "What's it like being an astronaut?" he asked. "I always wanted to be one." "It's a lot of fun," I admitted. "Why don't you become one and find out?" Max gave me a confused look. "Because I can't become one," he replied. "I didn't test into it. I tested into doctors. You act as if people can choose what they want to be." "They do where I come from," I said. Then I quickly put my hand over my mouth. I'd just given myself away. Now Max looked startled. "Don't you come from this school?" he asked. "I thought you were an astronaut. What's going on?" He seemed trustworthy, so I decided to take a chance. "I'm not sure what's going on," I told him. "I do go to the school, at least, I think I do. I go to the Laura Parker School, but it's nothing like this one. We don't wear jumpsuits, and our classrooms have numbers, not names, and no one talks about testing into things." I could see he didn't understand, so I hurriedly added, "You see, I went on this space mission with 2 astronauts for my school project. But when we came back to Earth, the other astronauts didn't wake up. I need help, but I don't know what to do. Everything and everyone seems so different." Max didn't say anything for a minute. Then he asked, "Do you know today's date?" "Sure," I said. "It's February 16th, 2056. Max's mouth dropped open. He nodded to himself. "That's what I thought," he told me. "Your problem is simple. You've come back to the future. This is the year 2099. Now it was my mouth that dropped open. "What?" "Yes," he said. "There must have been a problem during your re-entry. Probably a computer error." I took several deep breaths. "So," I said, "you're telling me that a computer problem landed me 43 years in the future?" I put my head in my hands. "So now what?" "So now you wake up the other astronauts," he said, "and reprogram your computer to take off and land in the past. I can help you if you want. I love spaceships. I always thought it was a shame that I tested into doctors." "I don't understand," I said. "What is this testing business?" Max smiled. "You get tested for skills at age 5, he replied. "The computer decides what job is best for you. Then you get assigned to study that job in school. Kids who don't test well or who get in trouble get assigned to sort paper clips." The policewoman's words finally made sense. "But that's not fair," I said. Max looked sad for a moment. "You're right, it isn't fair," he said. Then his face brightened. "Now let's figure out how we can get you some help." Chapter 5. Going Home Again. In the end, it was all pretty easy. Max took me to see Principal Sanders. He figured she would know how to help me. She did. "Max," she said, "do you think you could figure out how to open those astronaut sleeping capsules?" I'm pretty sure I could, Max replied. Well, then let's just keep quiet about this, she said. No sense in getting all of Claryville excited over a few time travelers. We got in the principal's car and drove back to the field where the spaceship was. Commander Assad and Pilot Velez's sleeping capsules were still closed. Max got to work. It's a problem with the computer's processor, he said. Principal Sanders turned to me. I don't know how that boy tested into doctor, she said. It seems to me like he was born to be an astronaut. I felt I had to say something, but I wasn't quite sure how she would take it. I know everyone thinks those tests are never wrong, I began, but what if they sometimes are? Then you have unhappy students. Max really wants to be an astronaut, and he knows so much. Why not let students study what interests them? Principal Sanders seemed lost in silent thought for a minute. That makes sense, she finally answered. It does seem like the tests were wrong in Max's case. I'm going to see what I can do to get Max switched into astronauts. I don't know. Maybe those tests aren't such a great idea after all. Just then, there was a shout from Max. I did it, he cried. It was true. Commander Assad and Pilot Velez's capsules popped open and the two astronauts sat up. Commander Assad yawned. Where are we? She asked. Ray, what are you doing? Who are these people? Once it was all explained, Commander Assad and Pilot Velez, with a little help from Max, reprogrammed the computer to blast back into space and return to our own time. I was a little sorry to go. I really liked Max. Part of me wanted to stay and make sure he became an astronaut, and make sure that the testing system got changed. But that would break one of the first rules you learn during astronaut training. No one is allowed to stay in the future, or in the past for that matter. In fact, you're not supposed to time travel at all. At least, not on purpose. So I have to go home. And I must say, I am looking forward to it. Although describing my project in school won't be quite so much fun anymore. I won't be able to talk about my trip to the future at all. That's another rule from astronaut training. You can't tell other people about the future. Just think, I've experienced the most exciting adventure of my life, and I have to keep quiet about it. But some things will stay with me forever. I know I will fight against the tests whenever they are created, and I have the surprising feeling that I'll be meeting Max Quinn again. In the future, of course.